What's happening, guys? We're out on the road on another mobile repair call. We have a 2003 Ford Taurus 24 valve DOHC engine that has a P1506, which basically means the IAC, which controls the idle airflow, and the RPM ultimately can't control it. So it's trying to control it. It's at a set point where it should be, let's say, around 700 RPMs, 1,000, wherever it's calibrated for, and the RPM's way higher. So it's uncontrollable. After a while, it'll set this code. Now, there's a few things I check on the vehicle right away, and I want to go through them today with you. We're actually going to diagnose this together. Now, the first thing I do is a quick visual of all the PCV lines and stuff like that, especially the one under the throttle body here that goes over to the PCV valve in the valley. But check this out right here. First thing I do is I start it up. Okay, right there we know the idle is way too high, about 2,000 RPM. It is cold, but it's too high. So the very first thing I do, I'll disconnect this guy right here. And that is your IAC that's controlling the amount of airflow that comes in. When you do this, it shuts off. So at this point, the engine should go to a very low idle, if not die out. As you can see right here, it runs just fine, which means it's getting another source of air from somewhere. Who knows where? But you can also hear a vacuum leak. There's a hint of it. And then you go to shut it off, and you can really hear it. Now, some noise when you turn it off is normal, but obviously that is excessive. So let's start looking around and see where it's getting that vacuum, or that source of air from. Now, the common points for a vacuum leak on these 24 valve DOHC Tauruses is these lines right here not being connected. Any of these lines not being connected to the intake right here. Good source. Then again, over here, especially over here, is a really good source because the oil actually degrades the elbow here and causes a leak, collapses and all that. So this one's been new. This one's new. It's been replaced. We're good to go. Everything over here looks good to go. And then down here, you can see it right there in the center, right here. This line right here, it's a hard plastic line that goes into a rubber boot and then the PCV hose under the intake, but also there's an elbow underneath there, goes into the bottom of the intake right behind the throttle body. And that elbow also gets oil on it, degrades, and causes a huge vacuum leak. This one is new, latest and greatest part. So the other point where I've seen an odd vacuum leak from is this little manifold right here for all the different vacuum lines that come in. We get the main vacuum line coming in here, and then it feeds a bunch of other different components. I've seen the actual manifold inside of this casing here crack on a couple of these and cause a vacuum leak too, because you have a large vacuum source coming in, so any kind of crack or seepage in here is going to cause higher RPM, stuck lean codes in the O2 sensors, and of course bank 1 and 2 lean on there. So that's another good point to check if nothing else comes up. So you want to look at these in detail going back, because on the back side here, you want to follow this line right here, which is your fresh air inlet, okay, to the rear valve cover. That's going to have another rubber elbow. Same thing as the front up here. Same thing as that guy. Looks just like that. So, of course, same kind of failure. It's going to deteriorate with the oil over time, and it's going to leak. So check all of those, most definitely. They're very easy to get to. Okay, so all of those parts are new on this vehicle. As you can see, the customer or one of their friends have been in here trying to replace obvious signs of leakage. So you can see the IAC is new on here. My problem is the very first thing we hear is a vacuum leak over in this area. There's nothing else over here. There's a valve cover, and an intake. There's no more PCV lines over here like on the 12 valves. Look at this though. This is not right. Now, naturally, there's going to be oil coming through the intake from the PCV system. There's a lot more than you think, but it never leaks from these gaskets right here. This is the upper going into the lower. Look how bad that is. It's leaking like crazy. I don't know what's going on here. I've never seen in all my years working on Fords a 24 valve DOHC leak like this. So all the oil that's coming through is just willy-nilly coming out. And it's happening back here on the other bank here too. So there's definitely something going on here, and I'm wondering if they took that off to do spark plugs, as you can see here, and wires, it's all new, well, it's aftermarket. They pulled the intake gaskets out to replace them, and then they never put them back in. So let's pull off the intake real quick and check it out. All right, so we have the intake off of here, and you can look down inside here, and there's obviously, you know, too much oil. It's just way too much oil. Like I said, these will actually pull a lot of oil through the system, believe it or not. But this seems excessive. Way excessive. So let's look up real quick. Our O-rings are definitely toast. Okay, but look at the oil, it's just dripping from them. It's way too much. I don't like it. Like the horse on Ren and Stimpy. No, sir? I don't like it. So, what we're gonna do is just clean the surface off real quick. We're gonna tighten the intake back down properly, and then we're gonna use the brake clean, look for leaks in the intake O-rings. And we're probably gonna need a PCV valve here also in the end. There's the PCV line right there. Squeeze it. And our RPMs are good to go. I can just feel it, watch it, let go. There's tons of flow coming through here, way too much. All right, now here is how it looks on the scan tool when I pinch the PCV line. Watch the RPMs. Pinching the PCV line. And now we're back down to close to the desired RPM. And this is with the IAC plugged in. Let go. And I could just feel it coming through big time. There's tons of flow through the PCV. All right, here's a look at the intake just past the throttle body. You can see the amount of clean oil that's up inside of here is just incredible. It's really hard to get in here. But that large port right there is the PCV port coming in. So after that, it just flows right into the intake. And of course, as you saw, it's all in the intake runners big time. But everything in here, it's just soaked really bad. So there's a lot of carryover going on here. So I pulled the PCV plastic line off. We're going to leave that part on. That's the revised piece. And over here in the valley is where it is in here. You can see it right there. I know you're upside down, but that's where it's at down in the valley. So it must have come apart, must be stuck open, and it's just so much flow coming through there. Let's change that out and go from there. Alright, so I pulled the old PCV valve out, and sure enough, it's probably original Ford one Motorcraft. And it's kind of coming apart inside there. There's a couple different pieces inside of there just kind of coming apart. The valve sticking through on this side. So we know there's a lot of flow going through here. There's a lot of oil in that intake. I mean, it's just seeping out everywhere. So that's still a problem either way. And we saw the RPM drop big time. So we're going to put in an aftermarket one here. That's all I had locally. So we'll pop that one in, reassemble, and try it out. Okay, now with the PCV valve replaced, everything back together, we're going to start the vehicle and we're going to monitor these two PIDs right here. Now, if I didn't mention it earlier, if you have this kind of concern where you think the RPM is too high for the conditions, especially at idle, you want to bring up these two PIDs right here. This is the actual RPM, and this one right here is the RPM desired by the PCM for the operating conditions. So this will give you a lot of good information, even without a code, even if there's no code set yet. So the PCV valve is changed out. Let's start it up and let it come down as it relaxes down on there. So we're going to let it come down off the initial RPMs that it was at. Cold startup. And it'll slowly bring it down to the desired RPM. And of course the RPM desired, you can see right here, is almost 1,000 because it's cold. It wants to, raise the temperatures of the cats and get those cold start emissions eliminated as soon as possible. So right there. I'm not touching anything. I'm playing around with the scan tool, as you can see, and look at our RPM actual and our RPM desired is 960. So this will really help you decide if the engine is running at too high an RPM. So right there with that replace, we can see we're good to go. Problem solved. This is the second time in my career of diagnosing drivability concerns that I've seen a PCV valve stick like this open, causing high RPMs at all times. And of course you'll get no lean codes because it's taking it from the metered air. So there's no unmetered air, it's an actual internal leak, I guess you could say. So there it is. Look at these RPMs. They're absolutely perfect. They're right around what it wants. And as it heats up, it'll drop it down to 6 or 7. You see it's, there you go. 6 or 7, 100 RPM right there. And it'll start bringing it down. So, problem solved. Car is fixed. $6 PCV valve. With a little bit of diagnosis, we got it pinpointed. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you next time.